Hey everybody, and welcome to Raising Vibrations, and you're with Simon today. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at a forecast for the month of April 2017. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the retrogrades as well, in terms of how to interact with them and what we can expect from this energy pattern. And maybe just sharing with you a little bit of personal update in terms of this month's sun sign forecasts and why this will be our forecast for the month of April. Okay, so firstly, I just want to talk maybe a little bit about the restructuring that's happening with my own self at this stage. Currently, I do the monthly forecasts, and for April, it's been a really intense ride for me. I've had to focus my attention on a lot of other things, and with Saturn transiting over my Neptune at this stage, I've really felt like super exhausted. So I haven't been able to fully commit to doing these forecasts in a way that I would usually do it. I just don't have the energy levels at this stage. But I am at the same time doing an incredible amount of self-healing. I'm purging a lot of emotional complexes that are associated with my psyche. And while I'm doing this, I'm also researching the way in which astrology and the way that the brain works and how obviously we develop emotional imprinting and memories. That at the same time is catching my interest. So I'm doing a very intense introspective work at this stage. And I hope to at some point in time share it with you all, and also actually bring it out into the world in a way that maybe has never been understood before. I think that we do that quite often with development of astrology, but I'm really excited to share this experience with everybody. But I'm still in my own process at this stage, so I'm doing a lot of as much as I can, but at the moment I'm really restricted to just working on myself and understanding more of my own karmic dynamics. And teaching, of course, a lot of astrology schools are running at the moment in time, which reminds me, I've also got one starting on the 9th of April. So if that's something that you actually want to do, you want to study astrology, my next course starts on the 9th of April. You can actually check that out with a link that's in the description below in the comments, okay? Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about, of course, is the April forecast. And this is going to go as a collective and general forecast for us, and just kind of giving the overview of what this month's going to be like, and then I'm going to talk about the retrogrades as well. Okay, so let's jump into that right now. Today's the 5th of April when we're recording this video, and this is what the chart looks like at the moment. And if we kind of pay attention to what type of energy has been moving through us over the last month and a half, and maybe even what 2017's theme has been so far, I feel that it's a lot of clearing up and a lot of adjustment. And we're also in a state where the energy is now beginning to move into a new direction, wanting to create a new direction. Okay, but it's not entirely ready for this new direction to burst through. There's a lot of gestation that still needs to take place. Okay, but it's this final preparation, this final shifting, this final clearing out. It's almost like a spring clean, ironically, that I feel the energy is moving through at this stage. So the things that I want to focus on right now on the 5th of April, of course, are Venus. Okay, so for a lot of us, Venus retrograde has been a really big deal. Okay, Venus retrograde has been playing a lot on the internalization within ourselves. So the internalization reflecting the archetype of Venus, our inner sense of who we are, the way that we inwardly relate to ourselves, the way that we define our essential needs. These are very key aspects to understanding what this symbol has been doing for us, this energy pattern has been doing for us. Okay, so the first thing to note is to pay attention to the essential needs that are shifting within your life. Okay, especially over the last month as Venus has been retrograde. Okay, now Venus has been in Aries, and it has now popped into Pisces. And what I feel the difference between the two constellations in terms of energy pattern is that while Venus has been retrograde in Aries, it's been focusing a lot on the planet of Mars. Okay. And the planet of Mars, of course, is in the constellation Taurus. It's been there while Venus has been retrograde. So there has been this mutual reception that has been playing out between Venus and Mars. And of course, this is the dynamic here that's been pushing us to pay attention to where we feel that we want space, okay, where we feel that we want to take back our power, where it is not happening within our lives, where we want to liberate ourselves from conditions that are oppressive or feeling as if we're unable to, or that we feel restricted, basically. And specifically speaking, it's the Uranus energy, because of course, both Venus and Uranus have been ruled by Mars. Okay, Mars is the ruling planet of Aries and Venus was in Aries. So for a lot of March, for a lot of time, while Venus has been Aries, that's been pushing us to get in touch with our essential needs and focus inwardly within ourselves. How do we feel about things in our lives? And then how do we then adjust these feelings, these experiences in alignment with what gives us liberation, what allows us to feel more free? Okay, so that's the first key, this freedom aspect, the space. We're wanting space, okay? Now that Venus has moved into Pisces, of course, it's now, you've done some necessary adjustments, okay? Some things have changed, all right? Now the question becomes, how does it feel? So that's the Pisces element over here, because all of a sudden, Neptune is now ruling Venus, not Aries anymore, okay? So how does it feel? How does it feel in your body? How does it feel in your life to have made these adjustments? And so as it hits the symbol Chiron, which is over there, it begins to also then become hypersensitive to more of the outer planets, okay? Chiron is the doorway to the outer planets, okay, of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So what I find fascinating about this synergy over here, and I mean, this is only the 5th of April, is that as Venus begins to move forward, well, onto Chiron there, and it makes that connection, we become even more sensitive to the Chiron story. And I feel that the Chiron story in relationship to the way that we have been evolving over the last, say, for instance, 5 years, has a lot been about about breaking down, like allowing ourselves to dissolve a lot of the definitions, a lot of the ways in which we have collectively identified ourselves. Now think about that for a second, right? How do you collectively identify yourself? How do you individually identify yourself? It's through your emotional relationship to things, okay? How do you emotionally relate to stuff? So at some point in your life, I'm sure you've moved a location, you've moved home. And that moving home, or that going on a vacation as an example, reminds you of how comfortable you felt in one environment as you enter a new environment. Okay, there's this contrast between something that emotionally feels like, oh, this is a little bit interesting, a little bit new, I don't know about this experience, and then your home or your original place of origin that reflects this, I'm very comfortable and relaxed here. So the emotional relatability to the changes in our lives over the last 5 years has been pretty profound. And the Chiron story, this whole Chiron story, has been bringing us consistently in relationship to surrender, in relationship to allowance, in relationship to acceptance. And as Venus now moves over that Chiron story there, and it makes that connection in retrograde form, the final puzzle within our next step of emotional and evolutionary dynamical process is being solidified, and it's how do you feel in the body? How do you feel about these adjustments? Okay. Now, Venus also is making a square to Saturn. Okay, there's Saturn at 27 degrees. Can you see it there? It's actually stationary at the moment. It's going to go stationary, or it is stationary, pardon me, and then it's going to go retrograde. So this is another big thing to obviously focus on. And this is what I find fascinating. Look what happens when Saturn goes retrograde. So Saturn on the 6th of April will go retrograde. And I'll talk more about this in terms of the once I've done this chart for us. But Saturn's retrograde, and it's hitting a retrograde planet as well in the likes of Venus. It's hitting Venus, that's retrograde, Saturn's retrograde, and of course, it's also squaring Chiron over there. Now, Saturn is the slowest moving planet. It's in relationship to Venus, so we're dealing with a first quarter square between these two, okay? And this first quarter square develops a very strong tendency to feel like we got 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's a consistent tango. And what we're trying to develop with this awareness between these two symbols is how do we fundamentally begin to encourage ourselves to feel free in moving forward while still having to backtrack a little bit and deal with some of the other stuff that is kind of, being left behind. So there's a lot of new values, new relationship, new feelings towards things. And how does that feel in the body? How does that influence my truth? Those are the big questions that will arise for you with this developmental phase of relationships between Saturn and Venus. How do I feel about this experience? Okay. And then of course, adjustment and feel, try new things out, be curious. These are the key words here with the symbolism. And the retrograde just simply means it's a very internal focus. It's a very, very internal, individuating focus. There's a desire to liberate. Hold that word in your mind for some time, because the word liberation is a very, very strong element to this month. Okay, so we go on to that, and then we have a couple of angles that begin to take place. For instance, the sun is now approaching Uranus, which is a big deal in my opinion. Okay, and then we begin to have Mercury. Okay, this is now on the 9th and 10th of April. Mercury goes stationary. And this is fascinating because the moment that Mercury goes stationary, okay, the moon will hit Jupiter. There it is there, Jupiter. And the moon will hit Jupiter. And like I said, the sun will hit that Uranus, and Mercury will also then begin to move into this state of like liberation. Whenever a planet goes retrograde, then there's a need for an intense amount of release of pressure. Okay, so what is the release of pressure reflecting? Okay, so now Mercury is in full retrograde. Now, whenever a planet goes retrograde, we look to its polarity to understand the dynamics regarding it, okay? Now, in Mercury's case, it rules the way in which we intellectualize our reality. It's the way that we give names to things in order for us to organize reality so that we can emotionally relate to it, okay? So Mercury is reflected beautifully in this conversation because I used the word Venus, I used the word Chiron, I used the word first quarter square. Those words is a Gemini Mercury thing. It's the labels I give a relationship between two planets. Okay, it's called first quarter square as an example, right? And there's an emotional relatability to that. That's why when you learn a new language, you're learning about the emotional way in which we relate to that language as an example. So when we have Mercury going retrograde, it points to Jupiter. Why? Because Jupiter is the polarity to Gemini. It is the right brain. It is the abstract. It is the intuition. And it is our capacity to understand something when it is coming from a place of our own inner knowing. Okay? So when you've got the right brain and the left brain now in a retrograde form, in other words, Jupiter is retrograde pointing to Mercury and Mercury is retrograde pointing to Jupiter, I feel that there's an interesting dynamic playing out here. Who do we look to? So in my view, I feel that Uranus is the key. Okay, so why Uranus? Well, because if you look at the symbol of Uranus in itself, it has one sphere there, and then straight down the middle, there's this connector. And to me, on many different levels, Uranus reflects consciousness, higher consciousness, and the electricity. Okay, the brain is when the hemispheres are connected, the brain emits a certain electricity. And when those synapses are working within the brain and creating electrical charges, we have insight, right? That's why whenever we have an insight, there's this general comic of a light bulb going off, electricity. aha moment. It is that electrical pulse in which the right and the left brain completely connect with each other, and then that creates a third entity, which is insight. So Uranus, reflecting the nature of this energy pattern where both Mercury and Jupiter are retrograde, we're now seeing there's this very, very strong attention here. Okay, the Sun on top of Uranus, okay, and Mercury is now going to be moving towards Uranus as well. So to me, I feel that this is a lot about the energy focusing consistently on liberation, breaking down, deconditioning, letting go of the process. And so what are we deconditioning from? What are we breaking down from? What are we allowing ourselves to see things from a different perspective? Well, Venus retrograde, okay? Why Venus retrograde? Because Venus is is influencing Jupiter. And the reason why Jupiter is being influenced by Venus is because Jupiter's in Libra. So Venus co-rules Libra and it co-rules Taurus. Remember, the inner relationship to self. How do I inwardly see myself? And then, of course, the outer way in which I relate to others. And it's not a coincidence that as Mercury is retrograde, the moon also not only has a full experience, in other words, a full moon happening on the 11th of April, but we also see it connecting to Jupiter, and we see the sun approaching Mercury. So there's a very, very strong, intensing focus around the Venus, and that Venus energy is about liberation and freeing ourselves from the inner conflicts, the inner judgments, the inner sense of identities that we've held in the past, the core philosophies and belief systems that we've held in the past. And I'm going to explore this with you further in terms of Saturn retrograde and what that's symbolizing as what I call the cosmic overlay. Okay. So there's a liberation coming here regarding our relationship to ourselves and others, and any type of relationship for that matter, including, the way in which you do your work and such. So we have this full moon happening on us on the 11th, and then of course Jupiter, the moon leaves Jupiter, it goes over across again, and it begins to then form close to Saturn. And what I find fascinating about its connection with Saturn is that Mercury is now completely on top of the Sun. Uranus and the Sun have switched places. Chiron and Venus are right on top of each other. The moon squares that Chiron and Venus connection very, very strongly, and Venus goes stationary direct. Now, the difference between stationary retrograde and stationary direct is that when something is stationary direct, there is not a release of pressure, but an intense insight, an influx of insight. And what gives us insight? That's correct, Uranus and the Sun and Mercury all on top of each other, but there are new phase relationships to each other in the sense. There's a lot of energy here that is reflecting newness. But it's not newness in the sense that it's now, we move forward with this. Again, the phasal relationship between Chiron and Venus and Saturn still in that first quarter square. So that's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. We're gathering information, we're breaking down and deconstructing. We're understanding our individual truth. We're seeing how that feels. Does this work? It's very, very much about action, adjustment, action, adjustment, action, adjustment. Okay. So that's happening, right? This whole entire experience of the awareness manifesting itself as Venus goes direct. So there's a release of intense insight that's coming out. So it's not pressure, but insight. Aha, this is what I'm going to do. Okay. And I think it's got a lot to do with the relationship that we have to separateness. In other words, where we are still stuck in duality and we're not realizing the deeper soul lessons that we've come to understand about our journeys on Earth. These are key elements to recognize with this transit. Profound, profound healing is available through this experience. It's about how we relate to ourselves and to the world, and we see through the veil. We see through this way that the soul is working. The soul is working to create desires, or is reflecting our unresolved desires. And as we emerge and merge with those desires, we recognize the deeper meaning of our existence on a human and spiritual level. And it's simply just incarnating both of them at the same time. It's nothing special. It's just a process of bringing something meaningful into the body, living it through the body, experiencing the actual biochemical change that manifests in the body through the brain and in the nervous system, and then watching how that adjusts itself according to the emotional body. So it's very, 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 very beautiful experience of just realizing the soul and ego as one experience that is trying to support a larger mission, as it were. And that's so much what that Chiron can reflect to us. This process in which we are moving through a very, very deep internal readjustment around the way that we intellectualize ourselves, the way that we emotionally relate to ourselves, the way that we spiritualize ourselves, the way that we define ourselves. All of these things are so much under review at this stage, and will continue to do that until the end of 2024 at least. Okay, so Venus stationary, going direct on the 15th, 16th of April, the Moon Saturn conjunction, and then something I find really, really fascinating as well, as soon as this begins to hit, is that Pluto now, okay, is going to be going retrograde, right? And this chart changes completely because of the way in which I've set it up. So all of a sudden, instead of Aries being on the ascendant, it's now Taurus. So I hope that didn't put everybody off there. But we've got two things that are manifesting itself. Pluto going stationary, retrograde. So again, the nature of our desires, the nature of evolution moving forward is going to be taking a back burner. So we've got Saturn retrograde, Pluto retrograde, Mercury retrograde, Venus going direct. Okay, then we have Mars. See this here? Mars at 29 degrees. And he's about to move into Gemini. Mercury and the Sun on top of each other in a combust. So this is I'm really, really encouraging people to recognize that this energy right now is very, very erratic. This energy right now is very, very scattered. This energy right now is this is the 20th of April, very much just confusion. What to do. I'm unsure about this. How do I go about doing this? A lot of this process is very internal, very much about I'm unsure. I don't know how to act. Okay, so this is a great opportunity to do not making big decisions in your life. Okay, important to understand this process. Okay, so Mars squaring the nodal axis, big deal. Sun enters Taurus. So on the 21st of April, we've got Sun entering Taurus, Mercury enters Aries, and let's just do it over there. There we go. Mars in Gemini. So we have another mutual reception. Mercury is now being ruled by Mars. Mars is being ruled by Mercury. So what are we being told here in this context, right? Mercury and Gemini are very, very strong aspects towards our next evolution. And from the 20th of April onwards, this energy pattern is going to become very, very prominent for us. And that's what I'm saying, okay? It's very much about breathing in towards the end of April, okay? Deep breaths in. A lot of slowing down process, being unsure about how to make choices. It's about a reflective month. It's a reflective month, okay? Trying new things out, seeing how it feels, adjusting, reflecting. Trying new things out, seeing how it feels, adjusting, reflecting, okay? That's your mantra for this month. Now, what happens when we've got Mars square the nodes, right? The nodal axis is reflected through Virgo, the North Node, and the South Node reflected through Pisces, and then Mars squaring that. Now, whenever Mars squares the nodes, which is Mars in a 90-degree angle towards the nodal axis, we're seeing a deep process here. I have Mars square the nodes in my chart, in my natal chart as well, and it's exact as well, just like this one. And this is a deep process of really needing to slow down in the way that you do things and pay attention to the way that you do things and allow yourself to breathe through the experience as you do things. And then as you consistently keep putting this attitude out, you start to notice that your desires are being pushed through. Your desires are being moved through in a natural way. So it's very, very important to recognize, as I said before, that this is a time in which there's a flip-flopping happening between the past and the future, the past and the future. And it's about, how do I action? How do I make choices? How do I move forward? And because it is in a mutable sign, because Pisces, Gemini, and Virgo all reflect mutability, we're dealing with the nature of change and adjustment. So that's why I said the mantra. Try things out, see how it feels in the body, adjust, try it out, reflect, and so on and so forth. Just keep on doing that, okay? And you will notice that there will be a huge capacity of insight that is available for us right now. Because once we get deeper into May and the nodes shift out of Virgo Pisces, a whole entire evolutionary cycle is going to begin developing for us. So it's important to recognize that we're in a completion cycle here, and it's about just dusting out and clearing out and checking stuff out and readjusting and really, really getting yourself set for this new cycle that's going to happen when the nodes shift. And of course, this is about creating space to breathe, creating new boundaries for yourself, okay? So if we move over to now the 23rd of April, of course, now we've got full retrogrades. We've got Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Jupiter retrograde, and Mercury retrograde as well. And then we're going to have a new moon take place for us, and this is going to be in Taurus, which is going to be amazing. And the new moon in Taurus is obviously going to initiate the new evolutionary cycle. And what new evolutionary cycle am I talking about specifically? Well, Venus leaving its like retrograde motion completely in that sense. It's like got a little bit of momentum now. And also it's at 29 degrees Pisces. So this new moon is going to take place in which we're going to deeply, deeply interconnect with those values. So by the 26th of this month, you'll start to notice everything will begin to make sense around what the March and April was about. It will all begin to flood in that way. And I think that that's a really cool thing to understand. I really do think that the way that this month's going to end out in that way is going to be very profound for us, especially around the values, how we feel, the adjustment inner and outer, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that's what this month's going to look like for us. And what I want to do is just kind of chat a little bit about the nature of the retrograde energies. Okay. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about with regards to Saturn retrograde, firstly, I'll start off with Saturn retrograde. As I was contemplating the nature of Saturn in Sagittarius for us, I was feeling that one of the things that many of us have lived in past life dynamics, and many of us still consistently live today, including myself as well, is a way of living life through a philosophy that comes from an external source, okay, and doesn't allow us to naturally connect with what is natural for us, okay? So Sagittarius in itself as an archetype reflects the natural way that we feel in our body, the natural way of how our existence operates for us individually. And I feel that because of the nature of our lives that we live, this can be very, very difficult, okay? We live in a very homogenized world. We live in a very consensus way of existing. And if we don't conform to a certain degree with the societal definitions and structures, then the majority of us that do feel as if they are in touch with the natural order in which their soul wants to operate, well, there's an alienation, there's an isolation, there's a detachment, there's an ever feeling as if you can breathe fire into the experience. And it can be incredibly frustrating, and it can create deep feelings of, like I said, of isolation and not knowing, if you're doing the right thing. All of the types of doubts can manifest itself. And I feel like this is a really, really tough thing to work through emotionally. For me personally, when I speak to a lot of souls that I do astrology readings for, and when I teach the astrology schools, I try to encourage that one of the things that we've come to understand about our lives on Earth here is to be in touch with that process and to actually honor that cycle, and to understand that as much as the emotional paradox of being in soul and then experiencing life as a detached or awake from consensus, that duality in itself being difficult to handle, it's about consistently honoring and nurturing that path and connecting with those that have a similarity to it. And I feel that with the South and North nodes that are going to be moving into the Leo Aquarius signature, we're going to be dealing a lot with wanting to feel embraced, wanting to feel part of a tribe, wanting to feel part of a collective. And with the onset of things like Facebook groups and YouTube channels like this, as an example, and multiple other ways in which we can connect, we have been able to alleviate that to a certain degree, because of course now we can just interact on a live way. But maybe we want more of like a physical community, and I feel that that is something that will probably become more accessible in the future. As I feel that a lot of us will get to a point within the collective evolution of ourselves where that becomes something that's more demanding. So it's, to me, it's interesting to follow this dynamic. But at the moment, I feel like we're in a deep mutation regarding the way that we understand ourselves on this level, on this frequency, on this ability to understand soul and emotion, relate to ourselves in that way. So because of that being the case, I think this is a great opportunity to still try to extend yourself, to connect and allow yourself to be enriched and nourished by souls that feel and think and intellectualize the nature of their reality in that same way. Now, part of the Saturn retrograde and part of the nodal axis that's coming in, that's in the Virgo Pisces, is developing a spiritual overlay that then becomes this umbrella in which we define ourselves through, okay? And, you know, for somebody like myself in the past, especially through patriarchy and religious conditioning, having a spiritual overlay is like a cosmology that you have that answers all the questions to your life. And that's great, because we all need one in order for us to orientate ourselves to the way that life works. But with so much Uranian energy playing out at the moment, with so much need for liberation and springing forth for new direction and desiring space and freedom to emotionally be able to understand and be in your space to know what it's like to be yourself, like pushing through and pulsating through, it can get incredibly frustrating and almost develop a deep sense of like anger towards doing things that are not what you want to do. And I feel that part of that process is also trying to emotionally relate to what the soul is wanting on a deeper level, you know. And if there's anything that I could share, and that is that at some point, if this desire is natural to you, to investigate what your soul is trying to do in this lifetime and to begin to connect with that process as a way of living in alignment with the natural soul's desires, and trying to break free from cosmologies and identities and ideologies that create a spiritual overlay in terms of like, this is why we're here, and like deconditioning that process, breaking it down, and then re-emerging with what is natural for you in your day-to-day life, like how you're emotionally relating to your life, and seeing what your life is being like, how you're experiencing your life, how is it coming to you, how you're directly experiencing, how you respond to stuff, and then developing a cosmology that is associated with that framework. That, like, again, you know, you see I'm doing it right now where I'm suggesting an overlay in which you relate to yourself. But I feel that the overlay that I'm suggesting here is one in which that brings you to the realness of your own emotional complexes and allows for a more natural like freedom of expression to be coming out. And I feel that that's another thing that's big with Mercury retrograde, is the freedom of expression, especially around the way that you relate to your life, especially around the way that you relate to the way that you intellectualize your reality, okay? The definitions you give yourself, as an example, and how those emotions are specifically being influenced by the definitions in which you see yourself through, you know? Some of the things that I'm busy like exploring and being excited about at the moment is observing emotional patterns within inside of myself and frequencies and emotional frequencies that exist with others, and noticing the keywords that we attach to those frequencies, and then the emotional reality that manifests itself through those keywords. you know, and how when we look at it from a specific angle, we could be sometimes limiting ourselves from feeling free and liberated from a perspective that, you know, might not be giving us the space to breathe, as an example. You know, so it's about readjusting your opportunity to look at things and say, okay, you know, is this working for me, is this not working for me? If I look at if my belief system says that I don't believe in money and spirituality should be for free, well, then that's fantastic, but what is that doing for you in terms of your actual empowerment? You know, how are you empowered through that process? We do live in a world in which energy on its highest level is operating as abundance. So do you perceive your abundance through the realization that we focus on the things that we desire as a way of evolving us, or do we focus on the lack of it and then the emotional complexity of feeling defeated in relationship to not having? Do you understand? So it's again this process of relatability, Gemini, and the belief systems associated with that and the relationships developed through that, Jupiter retrograde in Libra, and that of course being that Mercury retrograde experience. So, and then of course all of that is trying to be pushed through Uranus. So it's like really wanting to break down and individuate the essential needs that we all have for ourselves, the essential needs that we wish to share with other people, and the way that we relate and intellectualize our reality so that we can see things from different perspectives that could possibly and potentially give us the opportunity to be liberated from this cosmology that we have over ourselves, the way in which we choose to see life, you know. And it's really fascinating to me because, you know, when I was writing a lot for the online community Wake Up World, and doing a lot of articles and talking about astrology and the dynamics of evolutionary astrology and stuff, I would meet a lot of people within the chat, within the comments below, that would find a deep disturbance towards looking at life through the lens of astrology. And you could see the stigma attached to intellectualizing your reality and holding an intuitive understanding of reality in through a symbolic language like astrology, as an example, right? And that process for that person that's, you know, being incredibly almost outwardly judgmental about the way in which, you know, which people intellectualize their reality, if you look at their chart, probably on most of the cases, okay, these souls are going to have something like Jupiter retrograde in their natal chart, or they're going to have a very strong Uranus Jupiter connection, and or they have just a lot of retrogrades per se. And generally, when you have this type of dynamic, especially with Jupiter retrograde, especially with Uranus hitting Jupiter, maybe Uranus is retrograde hitting Jupiter, that there needs to be a complete rejection, or even a crisis in consciousness, a third quarter square angle. And again, I'm just referencing things quickly here. But when you have these types of angles, these are throwing off energies. So even if the information was completely legitimate, or it was completely factual for a person, these souls would interact with it in a way in which it would allow them to say, no, I need to reject it as a way of empowering, okay? So when you read these things, you can notice that through the cosmological overlay of what is natural for the soul, I don't actually see this as anything more than just a way in which the soul needs to empower itself through rejecting whatever it is that does not reflect empowerment to itself. And that acceptance allows us to see what's natural for them versus natural for us. And it breaks down the judgment, Pluto retrograde, the judgments that we pass on ourselves as a way of relating to our world, because we have so much of it. You know, we look at the world and we judge people's actions, we judge their behavior, we judge our behavior, we judge everything, Capricorn. And then where it's like good or bad, it's always a contrast, good or bad, and this duality process. And I feel that if we are to really, like, truly heal our relationship to what Capricorn symbolizes for us, and of course the nature of understanding individuality and honoring its sacredness, it is not that it's about judgment to the external, and it's not about removing judgment. It is about the realization that Capricorn in itself is connected to Virgo. So there is a necessity for discernment relative to values. Values is reflected in Taurus, discernment is reflected in Virgo, and Capricorn is reflected through direction. So when you see this trine that was actually happening in Earth, right? Did you notice those trines that were taking place? That it's about an adjustment around just judging the external world as a what is resonant for you and what's not resonant for you. So what is resonating, what's not resonating, adjusting your sails in accordance with what is your direction, and letting individuality be in its own space. So it's like its own fractal, you know. And we begin to become less concerned about what other people are doing, and we become more concerned about what it is that is right for us. And it becomes far more accepting, far more holistic in an acceptance and embracement that each of us are on individual fractals, individual journeys, discovering whatever it is that we're discovering. And that if we respect this way of Capricorn being an internal judgment, saying, okay, that's not right for me, I'm going this way, versus I can't believe this person's doing this over here. Have you seen how pathetic it is? Or, you know, they're breaking these things. Like, it's just about honoring the difference. Now, I am fully aware right now, and I can hear it, that there are many circumstances in which that can't be the case. And I recognize the kind of like Pisces experience in what I'm sharing with you over here, you know, the utopian understanding of something. But as a general rule within your own relationship to yourself, just being able to navigate your own story and your own ship away from things that don't resonate with you and moving into things that do resonate is a very helpful thing as a way of keeping your attention on your own vessel, on your own consciousness, on your own life direction. And I feel that that's a really important thing as we navigate more into the Aquarian type of way of relating to each other. And that's finding groups that reflect our way of intellectualizing and cosmologically associating and compartmentalizing a reality, right? That belief system's right for that person. It's not right for me. So that's fine. And we leave it alone and we move along a different journey. And I feel that this is something that is definitely being broken down as well, is the understanding of relatability, how we relate to ourselves, what is the difference, what are the essential needs for that person versus my own, how do I find balance and communication versus convincing and converting, or the need to suppress the energy in a way to facilitate our own emotional security that we need to develop or are still developing within ourselves. And that's a whole different talk. But you get what I'm trying to put across with these retrograde patterns. It's bringing to us deeper themes within ourselves, bringing us more attention within ourselves to realize what is the journey for us and what cosmology do we use and spiritual overlay do we use that supports or suppresses our natural way of being. As an example, okay, where have I read something on the internet that told me this is what I've got to do every single day to get enlightenment? And then I do those things, but I notice that I'm grumpy or I don't feel natural in the process, or it's like it's this discipline consistently, whereas your body's going like, no, I don't want to do that today, or I don't feel like doing that, you know? I can share my own personal story. You know, I have a Pluto 10th house soul with many symbols in the 10th house. And to do forecasts like I've been doing for the last 4 months is a big deal, because I don't naturally, with inside of myself, my emotional wave is in different places all the time, and I need a lot of freedom to be creative in where I am right now. But I have felt a really strong pull towards doing consistent forecasts. But this month has been a really, really difficult thing for me, and I've woken up every single day with this panic and crisis, like, oh my God, I gotta get these done, but I just simply don't have that energy to throw into it like this. But creating this thing was loads of fun for me, because I got to sit down and really tune into the energy, and it was one thing. And it was like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it this month. And then we'll see how we are next one. Then it's honoring this natural process, this natural cycle inside of myself, versus going, no, it has to be done this way because that's what is expected of you, or that's how it's supposed to be, or you've got to be consistent. You know what I'm seeing? The 10th house stuff that asks you to do those things. So that's what I feel like, to sum up for everybody, to kind of ground again what I'm talking about in terms of these energy patterns. There's a lot of moving forward, stepping back, moving forward, stepping back, trying things out. How do they feel? Adjusting, reflecting, and then moving forward again, right? And consistently just growing as this process takes place. And at the same time, the retrogrades, meaning Pluto is going retrograde, our desires are gonna become less like moving forward orientated. There's going to be a lot of internal reflection. We're going to be focusing a lot on the emotional reality for ourselves and how we emotionally relate to ourselves and other people. And that's, of course, shifting at a big level. Saturn retrograde is moving back over Sag, and it's going to just bring to us, it's like a breathing out experience, which is good. And also at the same time, it's going to develop a deep sense of allowing us to review our cosmology, review the spiritual overlay that we place on ourselves as a way of intellectualizing life. The Mercury retrograde is simply just moving in Aries Taurus. So again, it's that 2 steps forward, 1 step back. How do I act? How do I feel? How do I act? How do I feel? Jupiter still is retrograde at this stage. We'll probably be going direct really soon. That's still moving and creating space in the way that we relate to ourselves. And it's all holistic. It's all about the belief that creates space for ourselves and how we try new things out and how do we feel. And it's about adjustment. So I think that with the retrograde season beginning to shape in for us, it's a lot about introspection and liberation. That is the key. It's how do we liberate ourselves from, again, I've just said it 1,000 times, in different ways. How do we liberate ourselves from this big cosmological overlay? How do we allow ourselves to feel more free in the way that we want to be and express ourselves versus trying to convince ourselves of things based on an externalized truth that we've assimilated based on the experience of it appearing real in that sense, okay? So it's about getting real with your emotions. All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed this forecast for April 2017 and an introduction into these retrogrades. Like I said before, I do want to encourage everybody, if you haven't gotten a reading or checked out Learn Your Charts, I highly recommend you do that. It's a great opportunity. I'm definitely able to connect a lot more with readings at this stage in terms of understanding chart dynamics. I'm really having a lot of fun with the clients that I'm speaking to at this stage, and Soul's really strong empowerment. And again, studying astrology on the 9th of April is astrology school that's begun. I've got a small group of people, around about 3 or 4. So there's a great opportunity to have a lot of attention to you. Of course, you bring your own chart to the table. So we work through your charts as well as learn the archetypes of evolutionary astrology, and you begin to actually recognize your own soul patterns as well. So it's a great opportunity to do that if you want to learn astrology. And I always love teaching. It's my deepest passion. So, you're always going to know that whenever you're being taught by myself, it's not going to be just a half examined experience. It's like a lot of passion as well. Okay. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic month, and I'm sure I'll speak to you soon regarding another video. And take care. Bye-bye.